Dormady had changed faster. Gone were the days of scrambling for scraps or answering to anyone. He no longer needed to speak. His silence was enough to make men hesitate, reconsider, and obey. The end of Prohibition didn't end his reign. It simply shifted the battlefield. While others scrambled to find footing in a new era, Dormady moved in shadows, taking over the labor unions, the ports, and the freight lines. If goods moved, his hands were on them. And if money changed hands, his cut came first. He didn't kill often anymore. He didn't have to. Power made men vanish more effectively than bullets. But when necessary, he reminded the streets why the city still whispered his name with caution. One rival gang tried to take a shot at him. Only one. He left one of them breathing, just long enough to crawl back and tell the rest that Dormady was still untouchable. His operations became cleaner, smarter, and harder to trace. Legitimate on paper, lethal in reality. Judges received envelopes. Businessmen smiled nervously in his presence. Even police captains paused when his name surfaced. Yet through it all, Dormady remained composed, not flamboyant, not greedy, just relentlessly calculating. And beneath the surface, the weight of the past still pressed against his ribs. The war memories, the friends he buried, the lives he shattered to get here. Some nights, he'd sit in silence, staring at an old news clipping, or visit the quiet corner of a church where no one dared speak to him. No one except a curious boy once who asked, "Are you really James Dormady?" Dormady just smiled and said, "Depends who's asking, kid." But not everyone feared him. Some wanted to see him fall. The feds, now organized and patient, were watching. They weren't coming with noise. They were coming with files, with men in suits and quiet indictments. Dormady knew the real war was no longer on the streets. It was in boardrooms behind closed doors and in the minds of younger, hungrier men who wanted the crown. Still, as he stood one morning watching the city from his penthouse window, one thing was certain. James Dormady hadn't survived hell to be undone by whispers. If the city wanted a fight, it would have to come for the king itself. James Dormady's name no longer echoed in the streets the way it once did. Now it haunted courtroom corridors, whispered behind polished doors, and printed in bold across newspaper headlines. The city that once bowed to him now circled like wolves, scenting blood. It wasn't bullets or betrayal from rivals that brought him down, but paperwork, sealed files, and the slow, silent turn of those who once swore loyalty. He sat in a cold holding cell, staring blankly at the wall as his lawyer outlined the charges. Racketeering, extortion, tax evasion, conspiracy to commit murder. Dormady listened, not with panic, but with the quiet calculation of a man who'd known this day might come. One by one, his inner circle had flipped. Fear did what bullets never could. It opened mouths. When he entered the courtroom, the silence was electric. Reporters scribbled. Old enemies watched with satisfaction. Dormady walked in like a man arriving at a meeting, not a trial. Still sharply dressed, still unreadable. His reputation entered the room before him, and not a soul could look away. They tried to humiliate him, tried to paint him as a monster, a tyrant, a threat to the American dream. But even behind bars, he held their gaze. He didn't beg. When the judge asked if he wanted to speak before sentencing, he stood slowly and said only this: "I came into this world with nothing. I leave it with something no man can steal, control. Even now, you all fear me. That's enough." The court sentenced him to 10 years. But for Dormady, time was just another currency. Inside the prison walls, he was not just another inmate. He was a presence. Guards kept their distance. Inmates watched his every move. And Dormady? He watched, listened, waited. He knew empires don't die, they evolve. Outside, his businesses were gutted, raided, dismantled. But behind every move, someone stood in the shadows, someone he had groomed. The errand boy turned lieutenant. The quiet bookkeeper turned power broker. Dormady's reach didn't end at the prison gates. It simply shifted hands. And the city, no matter how it tried to erase him, couldn't. His systems, his silence, his rules, they still pulsed beneath its surface. Years later, Long after the courtroom lights faded and the headlines moved on, his legend remained. Some say he died in prison. Others say he vanished into Europe under a different name. No grave, no funeral, just a chessboard left behind in his cell, with the king piece still standing. James Dormady didn't just build an empire. He built a myth. And myths don't die, they wait.